Okay, the biggest red flag in dating is not still being in love with your ex. It's actually hating your ex. And I'm going to explain why. Hi, this is a realistic romantic, and you just walked in on your date with Drew. I'm Drew, by the way. I am going to be taking you on a journey to explain modern dating, become magnetic, all without losing yourself in the chaos. Okay, so today we're talking about exes, which I'm sure all of my exes are just going to love. But specifically, we're talking about why the biggest red flag in dating is actually still hating your ex and not necessarily being in love with your ex. And I know a lot of you are going to come at me right now and you're going to be like, my ex was so horrible. And like, I should be hating my ex. And like, you don't know who my ex is. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. Like, some exes are bad. But if you're actively hating someone and you're making it your entire personality, every single conversation topic, and that's all you can talk about on a first date, respectfully, you need to get over it and you need to forget about them. So let's talk about that. I'm going to start with a segment I am calling the relationship status update. So I'm actually doing academic research for this podcast. So I found a study that was published in a social, psychological, and personality science journal that was conducted by Zhai Shong and Chris Fraley from the Department of Psychology at the University of Illinois Urbana. And basically, their study found that it takes you twice as long to get over your ex as the actual time you spent dating them. So let that sink in. They're saying if you dated someone for a year, it is going to take you 2 years to fully get over them. And they based this on people who, on average, were dating for relationships of 4 years and had been broken up for a couple years at that point. And they basically found that the average relationship took 4 years to get over halfway. So they were like essentially ready to move on, but their ex was still a memory. And it took 8 years for them to get over it fully. So a 4 year relationship takes 8 years to get over, which is kind of crazy. So if you're saying that like you really don't care about your ex that much, the data just isn't on your side, babe. It is going to take some work to get over them. But here's the thing. I think I might have actually a little bit of an unfair advantage when it comes to getting over exes, and not just because I have so many of them, but literally anyone else out there too with an ADHD brain probably gets over their exes faster than the neurotypical person. And I don't have anything to back this up, but if you know anything about ADD, there's this like aspect of like object permanence, and the whole thing is like out of sight, out of mind. Like for an ADD person, that's like magnified by like 100. And so if I broke up with you and I'm not seeing you, or you broke up with me and I'm not seeing you anymore, like I'm going to forget about you. I'm going to forget about you pretty quickly. So here is a little story time about that. I recently moved from Texas to Miami, and one day I'm just like sitting, chilling on the beach, having like the best little time in Miami, going on Miami dates, and a Texas friend calls me up and he says, "Hey, your ex was like talking shit about you." And I was just kind of like, well, which ex? And they were like, your ex Jesse. I'm making up a name. I've never dated a Jesse. But I was like, wait, Jesse who? And they're like, Jesse B. I'm like, Jesse B. I'm like, did I date a Jesse B? Like I dated like a Jesse J and like a Jesse G. But that just goes to show that like if you were like out there kind of like living your best life and you have other things going on, you're gonna forget about your ex faster than if you're like harping on them and like making everything about them and like constantly shit talking them. So in this situation, like I broke up with Jesse like maybe 6 months or a year prior. I completely forgot that we had a whole relationship, and they're still out there shit talking me in front of like groups of friends. So who's better off? Like, do you want to still be thinking about your ex like a year later? I don't. So the goal here really isn't to like hate your ex less. The goal here is to forget about them. But how do we do that? Okay. So we had what I would call the little like drinks portion of this podcast. Let's get into the main course. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of why hating your ex is such a fucking red flag. So to me, hate and love are two sides of the same coin. If you are loving someone, that is an intense emotion. If you are hating someone, that is an intense emotion. And either one of those, they are taking up a lot of mental space in your mind. So I don't think getting over your ex necessarily needs to have like a hating phase. Like if you need a grieving phase or like you need a little revenge phase, like go do that. That should last like a short period of time. Like, what we really need is, like, the phase of, like, getting over them. And so if you're going on a date with someone who's still talking about hating their ex, major red flag because they are not over them. So let's go over the red flags. Red flag number 1. To me, when someone talks about hating their ex, that really points to unresolved emotions about the relationship. They are not ready to be dating you. They are not ready to be dating anyone. They need to go figure that out and resolve those emotions so that they can get over their last relationship. And I think this red flag isn't necessarily the most like egregious one, like, because there could be a lot of spectrums of emotions here. And like the hate is just kind of like the way to like deal with it or the way that it's just kind of expressing. Because it could be like they're really grieving and they still actually really care about that person, but they're just saying that they hate them. It could be that they're like kind of embarrassed about like being rejected and like aren't quite over that sting. But I mean, the one that's like really to look out for is like I feel like there's like an ego wound, and I feel like those people, like, that's the red flag. Because if your ego is the thing that's damaged, that's, like, not your heart. So, I don't know if you were in that relationship for the right reasons. So, if you're on a date with them, you should run. Red flag number 2 about hating your ex, I think hate is just a mechanism for shifting the blame. So if someone's talking about how horrible their ex was, all the horrible things that they did, my immediate question is like, okay, but who were you in this relationship and what are you covering up? For me, like every relationship has like some shared responsibility. And I think if you're unable to kind of like own up to your side of what you did wrong, there might be, let's call it a growth opportunity there for you. And then red flag of hating your ex number 3, I think this might be potentially the worst one if you let it go on. So this is when hating your ex becomes an entire fucking identity and personality for you. Making hating your ex your entire personality is simply not cute. And I feel like we all know someone out there whose entire personality and conversation revolves around hating their ex. An icon that comes to mind is Ramona Flowers from Scott Pilgrim. I don't know if anyone read those or at least watched the movie back in what, 2008, my high school era. But Ramona's whole thing was like having 7 evil exes. Every conversation they had was like, well, Scott, you're going to have to fight my 7 evil exes if you want to date me. And really, if we think about it, that's not particularly Scott's job. It's kind of Ramona's job to fight her exes internally and AKA get over them. So they're not taking up every point of conversation and every aspect of her dating life. But hey, I don't know. So if you're out here like Ramona and your ex comes up in every conversation, whether you are on a first date, going to brunch with your friends, talking to someone at the gym, talking to the cashier at Trader Joe's, this is your sign that it might be time to let it go. And instead of focusing on hating your ex, you might want to focus on forgetting your ex. And speaking of forgetting your ex, let's go back to another icon, Taylor Swift, who wrote an entire song called I Forgot That You Existed. So I think the sentiment of this song is really good because I think once we're kind of like past our grieving period and past that little bit of like, we're all allowed an emotional spiral. I think like once we're at the other side of that, I think it is kind of time to just let go and forget that they existed. However, writing an entire song and then going on to like sing and perform a song about forgetting that someone is out there would probably remind you of them. So maybe for Taylor, that's cool because I think she is doing just fine. But I think for you, maybe write a journal, rip it up, like get your feelings out there, and then just like move on with your life and forget that they existed. Okay. And at this point, you might be like, okay, Drew, like, yes, like maybe it is a red flag that I'm still thinking about my ex. Maybe it's flattering that my ex is still thinking about me. Maybe we all just like are kind of doomed to hate our exes because, like, how the fuck are we supposed to get over them? So that brings me to our like little end of date takeaway. Okay. So, how the fuck are you supposed to stop hating your ex and move on with your life? I will tell you one thing, you do not do it by going out and stripping. And what I mean by that is I think we take this tendency to try to remove the things that cause us displeasure like from our life, which I think is like fine to a degree. Like we don't need like pictures of like our ex like on our Instagram or like on our nightstand. So, like, it's fine to get rid of those. But I think when we like start like fixating on stripping our ex away from our life and being like, oh, like I'm not going to go to this coffee shop because this was our first date. I don't want to hang out with those friends because those were kind of like mutual friends. I need to take him off my Instagram. I need to block him. I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. I think hyper fixating on removing someone kind of makes us subconsciously want them more. And so I think we're really focusing on the wrong thing when we're trying to get over our ex and we're just trying to simply remove. I think instead of stripping our ex away, what we really need to be focused on is adding new things into our life. And your plate for life is like only so big. Like you have your plate for life. If your ex is taking up this, you don't necessarily have to focus on removing him because now you have this big empty plate and that plate is going to make you ruminate and think about your ex. So instead of focusing on removing, focus on filling it up with other things. Like this is where you can like reach out to those old friends that you stopped seeing because you were too focused on your ex when you were dating. This could be taking a new class. This could be like going to the gym. This could be doing a new like self-care routine. It could be whatever you want. But then when we start adding more things to our life that we want in our life, the things that we don't want in our life tend to kind of naturally fall away because there's no longer space for it because we only have so much room on this plate of life. So if you're not like me and you don't have this ADD brain and like your ex not being in front of you makes you instantly forget them, then try to focusing on other things and adding more to your life. I think just like a closing thought here, you don't have to like your ex. You just need to stop hating them. Because the real part of letting go is forgetting them or simply like acknowledging that that was a chapter in your life and that was a person in your life and, grieving and respecting that they're no longer. So I don't think we need to wish our exes well unless we're doing it Gwyneth Paltrow style, but we do need to uninvite our exes from our minds. And if you're hating on them, they are actively residing in your mind. And if they're still there, they're going to be taking up space from your future. So when it comes to an ex, hating them is a red flag. Hating them is going to be bad for you. And the best thing that we can do is simply leave them behind. And that is because the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. So truly, the most like powerful thing that you can do is be like, new phone, who this? Okay, so thank you for tuning in to the first episode of The Realistic Romantic. I hope you enjoyed your date with me. And if you're my ex and you're hating on this, I think it might be time to get over it. If you've got a dating dilemma, a situation sub story, or an ex who would absolutely hate this episode, send it to them and send me some fan mail. I really want to introduce a new segment at the end of this called Dear Drew, where I help talk through some like relationship issues and give honestly some unsolicited advice. You can send any dating questions that you may have or fan mail or hate mail at heyrealisticromantic@gmail.com. That is HEY realisticromantic@gmail.com. Until next time, date without delusion and be a realistic romantic.